Welcome back to the Anglotopia podcast. I'm Jackie Thomas,
Jonathan Thomas.
Mr. and Mrs. Anglotopia. Welcome to a new season of the Anglotopia podcast. It's been a minute, hasn't it?
Yeah, there's been a little bit of a break, but we are dedicated to bringing the podcast back and releasing it regularly.
Yeah, for a new season. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen, or if you're watching us, welcome back. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about some new updates to Anglotopia. So if you've been on the website, in
the past 6 months.
Past 6 months, you've noticed some changes. We'll talk a little bit about why there are some changes and the great things that it does for our readers. We're also going to talk about, you're probably wondering why we have all this Lego on the table. Not just set dressing. We'll talk about the exciting reason why. Then we're going to talk about the Anglotopia books behind us on the bookshelf. Bunch of Anglotopia books.
Shameless plugging.
Right? And then we're going to talk about some British or British adjacent television. And we'll recap today's episode with a look ahead for the next season. So with that, John, do you want to be mother or shall I? We'll pour the tea and we'll get started.
You can pour the tea, I guess.
Okay, so why don't you talk while I'm pouring the tea? So if you're listening, we have tea service set out.
Yeah. This is our London Underground tea set we purchased on a trip 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh my god. It's a collectible. I don't think you can buy it anymore.
I'm sure you could find it online somewhere. It's what is it?
It's our favorite set.
Like 20s or 30s?
Yeah, it's Art Deco-y. They're meant to be prints from the London Underground posters, but put on teacups and saucers. And we're serving Britannia tea, which is from Cornish tea.
It's one of your favorites.
It's one of my favorites. Unfortunately, we're out of stock on the store right now, but we'll have it soon. But it's a great mid-morning tea. I like to say that Cornish tea is the perfect daily drinker after lunch. My favorite tea for breakfast is Yorkshire tea, but this is a great in-between tea. So.
I tend to be a little bit of a Fortnum and Mason girl. I'm not going to lie.
Fancy.
Yeah. Well, I can't help it. So why don't we talk about Lego? We've got all this Lego on the table. Like, this is a lot of Lego, but it has a theme. What's the theme of this Lego?
Well, the theme is, so we are, because of a change in work situation for both of us.
Both of us, yeah, that's fair.
I have more time to spend on Anglotopia and Londontopia than I used to in the last 5 years. So we are focusing on growing the website and growing the business. And one of the ways we're doing that is we are having a series of contests this year, or sweepstakes, however you want to phrase it. And so this is our second one. You may remember our first one we gave away a year's supply of tea, which was
crazy
popular.
What tea did you give away?
The Cornish tea, a year's supply, which is like it was like
cheers to the winner.
400 and some tea bags of Cornish tea.
That's a lot of tea.
To drink more than one a day if you were so inclined.
That's a lot of tea.
And a bunch of other tea paraphernalia. So that was a great prize.
It was a great prize.
So to top that, we thought, can we do to top that in the second quarter?
Coming up is
so Lego released this beautiful red foam box Lego set.
Yeah.
And it's massive. It's like a couple thousand pieces. I haven't actually put mine together yet, but it's I thought that's the perfect prize. But then Lego still has several other London theme sets.
Yeah, we've got London architecture with its like the London Eye skyline. Yeah. You have one of these, I think.
I do have it. I have most of the London sets.
Yeah, I think that's in the office, the Anglotopia office. Then there's this Lego Creator. So there's like a bus.
It's a bus and it's like a postcard type thing.
Like a little London scene.
And then this one is the little red bus. And so the prize is you get all four of these.
Okay, so how do people enter the contest? What is the contest for?
So the link will be in the show notes as usual, or you can go to Londontopia and you'll find it there. And this is to promote Londontopia for several reasons.
The London theme.
Which I'll go into in a little bit.
Yep.
And you can enter, you have to sign up for the Londontopia weekly newsletter. So that's sent out every Thursday to people who subscribe, and it's all about London. Latest articles we've published about London, the latest events we've published in our new events guide, and the latest tourist attractions we've published in our new attractions guide on Londotopia. So, and then we're doing this contest a little differently. You have, because a lot of people are cheeky and like to enter more than once and don't think we don't notice.
We noticed.
We noticed. So this new software we're using to manage the contest gives you the opportunity to enter more than once. And
how do folks do that?
So like if you also sign up for the Anglotopia newsletter, you get another entry. If you like us on Facebook, you get an entry. If you like us on Instagram, you get an entry. And there's 10 ways to enter.
10 chances.
And believe it or not, a lot of people have done all 10.
Well, I mean, this is like, we won't like say the actual monetary value of how much Lego is on the table.
It's in the terms.
Oh, okay.
It's like $300 worth of Lego.
It's a lot of Lego. Yeah. Like John walked out of the Lego store like with bags of Lego.
Well, plus I had to get one for me.
Well, yeah, of course. So when does the contest enter?
So the contest.
Or when does the contest end?
The contest ends June 1st. So we'll release this probably tomorrow. So that gives people a couple weeks to still enter. And then we'll choose the winner, and the lucky winner will get all these wonderful Legos.
And if the winner is so inclined, if you want to send us a picture when you win, we'd probably love to share that out. So good luck to everybody. Please get your entries in. Really, really fun contest. And I know we're not gonna talk about it, but I know. Sorry if you hear that John's stirring his tea. Yeah. I mean, you got to stir the sugar in. But
it's got to be dissolved.
Okay. We will have another contest. Don't say what it is, because I know it's in the works, but when are we thinking about the next contest?
It's the third quarter, so July, August.
This summer, we'll have another awesome prize package.
And then we'll have another one in the fall for around Christmas.
So. Yeah, so why don't we talk a little bit about some updates to Anglotopia? Like, this is for the website, and if you've been a longtime reader, first of all, thank you for your continued support. Thank you for reading. Thank you for commenting on our socials. Thank you for engagement. You know, the website is, you know, it's John's job, one of John's jobs, and
one
you know,
three.
It's I don't know. Who knows anymore, right? But it helps support our family. So we want to thank all of the Anglotopia readers for your continued support. So that's a long intro to say, what's new on Anglotopia?
So the big changes, they started on Londotopia last year.
Okay.
We rolled out a new design to update the website. And then...
Because it had been a long time, right?
Yeah, it's been almost 10 years since we redesigned the website. That's a long time online. And I don't know if when you browse the internet, website design changes, and to be stuck 10 years ago really sets us back. So
for lots of reasons, which we won't go into. It's very technical
because it's boring.
That's a whole podcast.
But
right?
the major thing is that even though we have a mobile app, which is free, download it, iOS and Android, 90% of website traffic comes to Anglotopia from people's phones, and so the website is kind of designed for mobile first reading. So it's optimized to look nice when you read it on your phone. It's optimized to load quickly when you read it on your phone. And it also gives us a framework for all the new cool stuff that we're going to be releasing throughout the rest of the year, like an events guide, a attraction guide, and all that stuff. So it makes it so it's easy to navigate and easy to use on the phone.
Well, and we want our readers to be able to have a really great reading experience no matter where you choose to read it. It's still great online if you're accessing from a computer, tablet. It's still very responsive.
I mean, I'm biased, but I prefer to read it on the computer because I think that's where it looks the best. But it looks second best, I think, on tablets. So if you have an iPad, read it on the iPad. It looks great.
I always read it on my phone.
And and then there's the phone. And again, everybody does their internet research for British things on their phones, because...
Well, not everybody,
most people. I mean, how often have we been sitting in front of the TV watching a British TV show and we're like, where was that filmed?
Exactly. Yeah, no, you're so spot on with that. So, but essentially, although there are some design changes, people's favorite features are still pretty much there. The great content that you know
Yeah.
and love is still there, and we've got just some incredible things planned for the next year, which we're not going to talk about now, but
Yeah,
we've got some big things coming
we
this year.
we try to publish something every day. We don't always succeed, but we try to put something out every day, and we try to do it along the lines of what we've always done: British culture, British history, British
Positive,
travel.
right?
A positive corner of the internet where people can celebrate all lovely things British, and that way, there's so much garbage on the internet. There's so much negativity. You're not going to find that on
Yeah,
Anglotopia
we
or
try not to.
Londotopia.
No,
And
you
and
can
if
go find
we're
that elsewhere. You don't have to
yeah,
look hard.
and so there's plenty of other places for that. So if you want to have a
We're
good
not
time,
it, but
yeah,
help
if you want
yourself.
to have a good time and learn about British stuff, then come hang out with at Anglotopia or Londotopia.
So very cool, very cool. And I know that you've put a lot of time and effort into that. So John's really been head down, sleeves rolled up, big cup of
Well, the
tea, like
the redesigns usually happen on the weekends because that's when traffic is lowest. So
yeah,
if you ever browse it on a Saturday or Sunday and something looks broken, that's why. Because
yeah, because he's working on
I'm
it.
fixing
So
something.
yeah, but so that's not the only like kind of new and improved, and I feel like Anglotopia and Londotopia kind of like had a glow up, right? So the newsletter. So Anglotopia or Londontopia? Because we just talked about Londontopia newsletter. So
Yeah, because we haven't fully done the reboot of the Londotopia newsletter yet.
right,
That will
so
happen after this contest is over because we're going to have thousands of new subscribers.
perfect. So let's talk about
yeah.
the Anglotopia
So the
newsletter.
Anglotopia newsletter, we've been sending it out for almost 15 years now. That is the core
Weekly,
of Anglotopia,
right? It goes
yeah,
weekly.
it goes weekly, every Wednesday, and it's gone through several iterations, and it's always been a digest and summary of everything we've published in the last week, plus a message from us or the latest products in our store. But this year, we're kind of pursuing an email first strategy.
Yeah,
Because email is super important because while we have a website and we shout about it as much as we want, people will check their email more than they check websites.
well,
So
and with social media, like it's kind of a little bit of a gamble what
yeah,
folks see and they don't see. Like
5 years ago, we could publish an article on our Facebook page and thousands of people would read it and see it,
comment,
and that's how people would interact with us because they would see it in their feed, and sometimes they wouldn't even realize we had a website.
yeah,
And
that's true. That's a true story.
now people primarily, when they want to read something, they read it through their email, and
Yeah.
so email is big for us, and so our number one goal for this year, like with the contest, is to grow our email list. So now
That's a long way of saying.
the long way of saying I'm keep getting too detailed here.
I know.
Her job is to keep me on track.
So
the
what's new with the Anglotopia newsletter?
So the Anglotopia newsletter has a new design.
John, but why does it have a new design?
Because it's nicer. It looks nicer.
Okay.
And it's also it's designed with the mindset that you could sit down with a cup of tea and read through it in a long amount of time. So we've added more pictures. There's now
we've always been photo heavy.
There's always been photo heavy, but now there's a photo at the top that we pick every week. We kind of curate it to something that we haven't shared before, and then further down the newsletter is we're giving away a free desktop wallpaper of a pretty thing in England.
Like completely free.
So it's a picture usually we haven't shared before. Sometimes I can't resist my greatest hits, but it's a picture from our travels, and we give you the link to the full resolution image that you can put on your desktop, you can put on your TV, you can put anywhere you want. It's completely free.
Yeah.
And we give a little mini essay on the significance of the picture and why, what's in it and what's important about it.
Sorry, sneezed.
But then the other thing is we want people to spend time with the newsletter and read it and learn something, not just click through to the website.
Like it's a fun, it's like a dessert. It's like sitting down with a favorite dish. I cannot wait until you could still digest it fast, but the good yummy part of it is
the new weekly post. So it's a new essay usually in the middle of the newsletter that is about an experience we've had, a place we've been to, something interesting that is we find interesting,
like an essay.
like it's a little mini essay with usually with another picture,
Yeah.
and it will sort of the goal with it is to delight you or to intrigue you or to encourage you to visit somewhere you may not have heard of. And so there will be one of those in the newsletter every week. And so,
And the newsletter is free.
And the newsletter is free. So and so then you can, every Wednesday when we send it out and you receive it, you can, brew yourself a cuppa and sit down with your favorite phone or tablet or computer and read through all the lovely British stuff that we put out.
It sounds like lovely, like on a Sunday morning before our children are up, like nice cup of tea, get my tablet.
Yeah,
go through the newsletter.
There's a romance to reading magazines and things. People don't really do that anymore, so they
do, but not like they did.
Not as much as they used to. So now you can do it on whatever device you prefer.
Sure. No, that's really cool.
So we'll have if you're not already subscribed to the Anglotopia newsletter, the subscribe link will be in the show notes, and you can just go to anglotopia.net/newsletter and you can sign up there anytime.
Well, and really sign up for both, because we're not gonna spam you. Like that's very not cool. So we really are respectful of.
Yeah, we try to be, and you know what? And there's a one-click unsubscribe if you don't like what we send you.
So nothing's worse than when you can't find that unsubscribe button, because it is supposed to be there.
Yeah, it has to be there, and it's astounding
how many
don't see it.
Anyway,
and still email you asking to unsubscribe.
Well, sometimes it's a little tricky for folks, but it is there. It is easy to unsubscribe. So that being said, we've got more new, oh my gosh, it's like I said, it's a glow up episode, right? So you have been, aside from the website, the newsletter, you have been writing and writing and writing away. So you had how many books in this? 3 books? Is it 3 books in a year? Like 3 books?
I'm finishing the third
2.5
I'm finishing the third one right now.
Okay. So why don't, you want to talk a little bit about the books?
Yeah. So because I have more time, the strategies for this year is to release more Anglotopia books for lots of reasons, but mostly because
you love Britain and you want everybody else to love Britain.
Yeah, and I like making books. It's very fulfilling to make a book, and they usually sell really well for us, and they're good for the business to have a healthy library of books.
Well, and we know that our audience really loves them and supports them, and it's not I don't know. If you've been with us for a long time, we bring a unique perspective to British culture.
And one of the, I wouldn't call it a problem, one of the abundances of Anglotopia is we have over 10,000 articles on our website from almost 17 years now of publishing. And that's a lot. And it's also very hard to find a lot of that stuff in the archive. There are people who will scroll through every page of the archive, but sometimes you may not know that a few years ago we published an entire series of articles, 50 articles on Britain's great houses.
Let's see, it's this one. That book.
And so
we're grabbing it. So if you're on camera, if you're watching us, you can see it.
The book is called Great British Houses, and it is the Anglophile's Guidebook to Britain's Stately Homes. So we published these articles years ago.
Great.
And I've always wanted to compile them into a book, and it's always been at the bottom of the to-do list, and just haven't had the time. And when I finally sit down to do it earlier this year, I realized that all the articles needed to be updated and rewritten. So a small project to just compile everything and put a book out became a big project. So,
right, and we want it to be as accurate and up to date as possible.
We want to be accurate and up to date as possible, because a lot of these houses are living houses.
Right, I feel like sorry if you're listening and you're wondering what that tapping is. John keeps tapping the top of the book, so I've taken it away from him. But I
keep my hands to myself. So these houses are living houses, and things are constantly changing. So we've tried to update every single article to reflect the current situation that each house has. Because some have been, like Wentworth Woodhouse, which is one of the featured articles. Its ownership has changed several times in the last decade. it's now owned by a trust but managed by the National Trust. It's really complicated stuff, and so we want to like break that down and make it easy to understand for
like,
everybody.
can you go? Can you not go?
Yeah, and
see it.
this book we just released last month.
Thick book too. This is a beefy book.
So there's 50 chapters. In
like
that
beefy
book.
for a guidebook, I think.
And it's every house has a history of the house, how you can visit the house, why the house is important, key facts about the house, and there's pictures of every house. Some houses only have one, some have several. It depends on what we have from our own library and what we could license. Like you have no idea how hard it was to get a picture of Chequers.
I bet
the house of the country house of the prime minister.
Yeah, well, for security reasons.
Yeah,
right? Like we can understand.
There's not a lot of pictures of it, and so that's out now. We just released it last month. It's been a great seller for us, so thank you if you bought a copy.
Yes, and you can buy any of our books at any time
at our store.anglotopia.net. They're on Amazon. They're at every other bookstore.
You can order pretty much through any bookseller.
Yeah,
right?
You can order through any bookseller. They're on Kindle. There's an audiobook version of this one, I believe, and there's an audiobook version of one of my other books. But we didn't put that on the agenda. So
that's okay. We'll talk about it another time.
Yeah, and
but what's the other, because we've got, you have been writing and writing and writing, and we have the second book that came out within the past year that has been really fun is
the Londontopia's Dictionary of Cockney Slang.
Yeah.
So our other slang dictionary is our best-selling book.
And that's our general...
Yeah, it's general British slang. And so our most trafficked page on Londotopia is the Cockney slang page. And so I was like, well, that tells me that I should make a book about it. So I took our dictionary on Londotopia, expanded it, added hundreds of words, added more phrases. And then I also wrote a bunch of essays on the history of Cockney slang, the culture of East London, famous Cockneys, everything you could possibly want to know about Cockney slang, the East End of London, and all of that. In a nice little compact dictionary, which is available from booksellers everywhere, from us, from...
So much fun.
And it's a fun little book, and
it is.
We intend to put out more fun little books like this, which leads us into the third book coming out this year.
Writing,
wait, there's more.
Right. You get the super prize package.
So right now, sorry, it's a 2-cup of podcast.
Hey, everybody joined us to have a cup of tea. Let's have some tea. So you are working on a Bridgerton book, right?
Yes. So Bridgerton obviously took the world by storm.
Yes.
And it's
so good.
The third season is coming out tomorrow, in fact.
So you can tell when we're recording.
I had wanted this book done by then, but
life
deadlines, as the guy that wrote Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy says, I love deadlines. I love watching them fly by.
If there were never a truer statement, right?
So the book it's called The Anglophile's Guide to Bridgerton, to the World of Bridgerton. And it is a guidebook to Georgian and Regency Britain. So it's not so much about the show and the books. It's about the world the books inhabit, to give you a historical grounding for why the show is the way it is and why the characters act the way they do.
Social norms and cues and culture and
who are important Georgian and Regency figures, and even Georgian slang and Georgian manners, Georgian sport, Regency sport.
So if you were gonna throw a Bridgerton party, this book would be a great primer.
Yeah, you could read this book and know everything you need to know.
Exactly, you have an absolutely proper Georgian event.
So the book should be done. And again, I hate to make promises. The book should be done by the time the second half of the Bridgerton new season drops in June.
It better be done, because we're talking about it, so it better be done.
Yeah, so it will be. Look out on the website for announcements, or in our email newsletter,
or social media.
We will shout about it from the rafters.
Absolutely.
When it comes out. And it's going to be a fun book.
Yeah,
and I think that it'll be a good book for Anglotopia to put out.
So, with that being said, we've talked about a lot of new, like a lot of new. And so when we're not actively working on Anglotopia, right? Well, definitely you and me sometimes we're like consuming British media. And there has been so much great, like I know we're not like I'm sure we're gonna get comments and letters and that kind of thing, but there has been so much great British movies and television
Yeah.
and things that we've watched and read and all of that good stuff. So I thought let's talk about some British TV, but I think we definitely have to address the Highclere Castle in the room because there was a huge
Yeah.
announcement this week.
Yeah, way to mess up my show notes, focus features.
Yeah, no, we're so happy about this news.
That's something we kind of all thought was inevitable.
But we were waiting for official
Yeah,
confirmation, right?
which
Trust
came,
but verify.
which came was it Monday?
Yeah, I think
I
so.
think it was Monday. So there is going to be a third Downton Abbey film.
Yeah.
So the filmmakers decided to print more money. They're going to make another Downton Abbey film, which is filming now. Actually,
Yeah.
they just waited until they started to make the announcement.
What do you think it's going to be about?
Well,
Like we don't know.
we don't.
We don't
Yeah,
know.
we
We're
don't
just
know.
speculating.
My speculation is that it'll probably take place 6 months to a year after the last film. I'm not going to give away any spoilers of the things that happened in the last film in case anybody hasn't seen it.
Yeah, no spoilers.
But there will be a change in lineup characters based on who they've cast.
Yeah.
So you may remember Paul Giamatti was in the last film as Cora's brother. They've cast him again and made a big show of it in the press release. So what I suspect is going to happen is that the main characters will be visiting the U.S. to sort of 1920s America.
That's interesting.
That's my spec. That's completely my speculation. I have no inside information, but based reading the tea leaves of the announcement, I suspect that because in the last film, half of it took
No
place.
spoilers.
Well, it's not a spoiler.
Okay, just
half
sure.
of it took place in France for plot reasons, which I will not divulge because that would be spoilers.
Don't go into it.
So what? But they know that the meat and potatoes of Downton Abbey is the house and the staff of the house. So what they'll probably do is what they did in the second movie, where half of it takes place in France, half of it's still following a B plot back at Downton Abbey.
Okay.
So I suspect there will be bits in America and bits back in England to kind of please both sides of the story there.
I think you're probably right, but I guess people would like start to age out of the show. But I would love to see like the house turn like World War II. I think that would be like really cool. Or did they do? I apologize, I have a knowledge gap here. Did they like turn the great houses into hospitals during World War One?
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
And, we've already done World War One.
Yeah,
right?
and World War II.
But World War II would
they
be
were
next.
used as hospitals, schools. They were used
that would
as
be
billets for soldiers.
But like
it's where the secret services were based. Like
folks are gonna characters are gonna age out of the roles, right? By the 40s.
That's the thing is the way the timeline of the show has worked. It's always moved very slow. Like because the show started in 1912 when the Titanic sank.
Right. That's the first episode.
And that's the first episode. And then we went through World War II. We went through the late
World War One.
I'm sorry, yeah, World War One. The late, through the early 1920s, and we're in the timeline of the show. We're still in the middle of the 1920s, and so I've always wanted them to kind of jump ahead to World War II because there's a lot of interesting storytelling possibilities there, and that's the writer, or the fiction writer in me. Is because by then the kids would be grown up, so they could take a center stage and have to go off to fight.
It's almost like a whole other generation.
It's a whole other generation, and that generation is very consequential to the
absolutely
to the history of the country house in England, and there would be some major changes if they kind of followed what history books have written about that era.
Exactly,
but I suspect they're kind of maybe. I mean, every period drama in the early 20th century eventually does World War II. I mean, even All Creatures Great and Small is now in World War II. And so I kind of feel like maybe...
that's the next movie.
maybe
The
the next movie, or maybe they would do a. There were rumors earlier this year that they do want to do another show, Downton Abbey, not just do movies, and so it would make sense that they could, that the movies and the show could exist in different timelines. That's
That would be
possible,
really cool.
and they could do a time jump in a TV show and do the late 30s and 40s, and because there's so much they could do there.
Oh yeah,
but we'll see.
Yeah,
we just have to wait and
but
see.
That's an exciting announcement.
If they're filming it now, I suspect it will come out either in the spring of next year or the next fall, based on the timelines they've worked on before. Would
be pretty
so
fair.
we will be there on opening day with bells on.
So let's move on then to some of the great things that some of the great British or British adjacent, and like things that by British adjacent, I mean like things that are taking place in Britain.
And we'll explain that in a minute with some of the things we're talking about.
The first one you want to talk about is Masters of the Air.
Masters of the Air. So
on HBO here in the US.
No, it wasn't on HBO.
No, sorry.
It was on Apple TV.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So if you're familiar with Band of Brothers in the Pacific, produced by Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg, they've always wanted to do a series focused on the air war, in addition to doing, the ground soldiers doing the Pacific, and now they wanted to do the air war. And so this show was in the works for like 15 years.
It's beautiful.
And so it finally premiered earlier this year on Apple TV, and it obviously most of the characters are American. It focuses on Americans, but
it's set
at Thorpe Abbott's in the eastern part of England. So pretty much 90% of the show takes place in England. So you get a insight of the American characters interacting with the British people. You get a kind of an American and British view of World War II. When the characters go on leave, they go into London. There's a great episode in the middle of the series where one of the characters goes to Oxford and goes to a conference during the war. And that's actually probably my favorite episode because I'm an Oxford stan. And there's just tons of beautiful scenery in England, tons of insight into culture, but through a very American lens.
It's interesting.
So it's highly recommended. It's 9 episodes.
It was a little too intense for me.
Yeah, I mean, in the early episodes, the battle scenes are very intense. They are very, anxiety-inducing.
Well, and I think it puts into perspective, right? What
these men did.
Yeah, oh my god.
After the first episode, I turned to her and I was like, I am not a man. Those are men. Those are men. But as the show goes on, there's less battles because I think the budget kind of got spent, so there's less battles.
But
more character oriented.
Like the sounds like a really weird thing to say, but they are shot so beautifully too. I mean, they are just to be sitting comfortably on my couch and watch, right? Yeah. And I don't want to be insensitive to those who served and lost their lives in that conflict, but to feel that sense of I hate to use the word anxiety, almost like, oh my, I cannot wrap my head around what it had to be like to survive that and then go on and live the rest of your life like so many people did. It's absolutely incredible. What an incredible sacrifice.
Yeah, and some of the characters in the show that they followed through the whole show, they survived and they went back to their lives and lived full lives like nothing had happened. And it's like, how, like...
I get a flat tire and I'm I'm miffed for weeks.
I got hail damage a couple of weeks ago and that just ruined our month.
I know, right? Oh, gosh. What does that say about us? But anyway.
I highly recommend watching it. The aerial battles
that's what I was saying.
Are intense, but they're
really good.
They have a beauty about them, the way they've shot them. And I recommend watching on the biggest TV you can in 4K with a good sound system.
If you can,
because the sound will envelop you.
Yeah. But I also thought, not just the air battles, the production quality, costume, set design, like it was top notch all the way through.
A lot of my favorite shows lately have been on Apple TV. Apple has really invests in their shows,
And we're not
and they
being paid
look
by Apple.
no,
Like, this is not a plug.
they look fantastic, and it's no different.
So, well, why don't we move on to our next show?
Yeah.
The Three Body Problem.
Yeah, so
interesting show, really interesting.
So this one was released on Netflix a few months ago, and it was just announced last night. They've renewed it for not just the second season, the rest of
the books.
So they're going to conclude the story.
So why don't you give folks an idea of what is the show?
Yeah, because this wouldn't normally be a show we talk about because it's hard science fiction. I am a huge science fiction fan. But you can't see over there, but that whole bookshelf is sci-fi books.
I am not. I'm like, I don't know, sci-fi light. Would that even be fair? Like, I'll dip my toe in every once in a while, but.
So the Three Body Problem is based on a series of books, and so the first season tracks the first book, which I have not read the book. The book is it's big. It's a very big book, and it's not about anything particularly British, but what is British about it is 90% of it takes place and was shot in the UK.
Yeah.
Even the bits that don't take place in the UK were shot in the UK.
Well, and it centers around a group of Oxford students.
Yeah, it centers around a group of scientists who
Oxford scientists are no longer students.
They're career scientists.
They met at uni.
They all know each other from attending Oxford together, and so while it's a parallel world that's it's kind of futuristic-y in its telling. Everything is visibly British. I mean,
it's approachable.
Many of the characters are British, or they have British accents. There's American actors too, and because it's a global story.
It's so good.
The book is written by a Chinese author. A big chunk of the story does take place in China.
At least in this last season. Will it take place in China in the future?
I believe so.
Oh, cool.
I haven't read the book. I haven't read too far ahead in the synopsis because I don't want to spoil.
Yeah, no spoilers.
But there's a lot of tropes in science fiction. A lot of science fiction can be very much the same, which is why it doesn't appeal to a lot of people. But this is the most different sci-fi show I've ever watched, where we watched it and both of us, like, our minds were blown.
Yeah, I was completely... And I'm not a huge sci-fi fan, but the character development was really good, and that I really cared about what happened to the characters. And I have to say, like, speaking from an outsider, obviously, like, they capture that kind of, like, Oxford spirit, like, where... like that culture of education is celebrated and respected, and as the characters start to encounter these really strange phenomena that science really kind of can't explain, right? They kind of step back and go, well, like, I'm an Oxford trained
astrophysicist,
right, and I can't make sense of this, and it's really good. And I would encourage folks, even if you're not a sci-fi fan, because I wouldn't necessarily consider myself like I don't hate it. It's not my preferred, but I was like, is that on tonight? Like episodic TV, right? Like, we were there to watch it.
Well, it's 8 episodes, so it's not a huge commitment.
Really, really good. I think it's like an hour an episode.
Yeah, and they've renewed it for more, so the story will be concluded. Highly recommend it. If you're only mildly interested in sci-fi, but you love British things, it's a very British show, even though it's kind of billed as an international show.
Like, give it 2 episodes, and if it does nothing for you, then you could say that you tried it, but it's really good.
It's made by the guys that did Game of Thrones.
Oh, okay.
So they use a lot of the same actors and a lot of the same production people.
It was really good.
So it's
like, I could sit and rewatch it. It was that good. And I wonder,
that'd be a great, like, winter binge when we're snowed in.
Well, and I wonder if you sit and rewatch it, if you notice new things each time, because the story is complex, but it's not so complex that you can't follow it. But why don't we move on to our next show, though, which was
another Netflix show, which was The Gentleman. So
I was like, what is this?
I had to force her to watch this one.
He says force, like He means it gently. Like, I was not like strapped to a chair.
Like, you can look at your phone while you watch it. And then she was enthralled. So it's a Guy Ritchie show. And if you're familiar with Guy Ritchie's films, he has a particular style and particular
It's very Guy Ritchie.
Guy Ritchie tropes. Usually they involve gangs, drugs, and like how they intersect, and
little violent, little in your face,
very stylistic,
anti-Bridgerton.
Yeah, it's the anti-Bridgerton.
Right, we've gone through the spectrum, right?
So I mean, during the pandemic, a movie came out called The Gentleman, directed by Guy Ritchie, and it was about aristocrats who get involved in the marijuana trade. And because the movie kind of got buried during the pandemic, a lot of people didn't see it, and I did. I saw it because I like,
you see all the British movies.
I see all the British things, and it was really good. Netflix apparently thought so too, because they're like, why don't we take this concept and make a TV show out of it? And so while the movie and the TV show have nothing to do with each other, the TV show follows a similar concept. So the main character, his father dies and he inherits the big country estate in the English countryside.
But he's the second-born son.
And he's the second-born son.
Not the first.
Yeah, he's not supposed to inherit it. And so there's family drama there, aristocratic family drama, beautiful houses, badminton house, which is not open to the public.
Gorgeous.
But is in the book. Great British Houses. We talk about badminton house. And it talks about how it turns out the dead father was keeping the family afloat by allowing a pot growing operation underground on one of the farms on the estate. And so then what ensues is the zany, like, he's very, the main character played by Theo James is very straight, and like he doesn't
straight as an arrow.
He doesn't want these people there, but like he gets sucked in Godfather style, and
it's so good.
It's so much fun. And there's beautiful English countryside landscape, beautiful houses, like funny aristocrats. Like there's so much to love about this if you love British stuff.
Well, and I love that the head of the growing operation is the woman running the operation. Essentially, is a woman. She's played by the character Susie Glass, and her father is in jail, and I use that term, or prison, lightly because he's living
prison basically.
Yeah, like it's like Club Med, but she's kind of the heavy on the outside, and she's strong and powerful, and her name carries weight, and it's just all the characters in the show, like nobody phoned it in. Like the characters are really well developed. They're really interesting. You find yourself rooting for people that you wouldn't root for, and vice versa. Just, I really, like, I don't know. I thought it was going to be like another kind of British house show that was just like...
It's not that.
No, it's not. It completely turns the whole kind of, like I said, the anti-Bridgerton, anti-Downton Abbey kind of turns everything on its head a little bit and like shakes it up, and it's a little violent, but the characters in it are they're just so rich. Like the Reverend, right? Like, just so rich, really, and just great storytelling. So very British all the way through. Normally would not, again, this is another one that normally I wouldn't sit down and like really enjoy, but I enjoyed it from start to finish. Which one was, your favorite, yes. Your favorite. Yes. What? So John, where were you last week? All last week.
Clarkson's Farm.
No, you didn't actually go to Clarkson's Farm.
I haven't been able to do that yet.
Okay, so what is Clarkson's Farm for folks who don't know?
Clarkson's Farm has returned to Amazon Prime, and for folks who don't know, Jeremy Clarkson, one of the hosts on Top Gear and the Grand Tour, a few years ago, he bought a farm in the Cotswolds, and he named it Diddly Squat because that's how much money it makes him. And he sold Amazon on making a show about his farm. And so they shot it during the pandemic, and it ended up being Amazon's most popular TV show they've ever made. So ever. Yeah. Like super popular, like more popular than the Grand Tour, I believe. And so Amazon's like, well, we're going to keep this train going.
We're going to order more of those episodes.
And so, because and I have farmer friends in England who even love the show. It is a very authentic look at the challenges that farmers face in Britain and somewhat in the US as well. But the things farming is very different here than it is in the UK. And so it just follows the trials and tribulations of Jeremy Clarkson as he tries to farm his farm and make money off of it. And they've introduced a cast of characters that have they all have their fans now. There's Caleb, the tractor driver. There's Gerald, the guy that does the stone wall repairs, and like who you can't understand anything he says.
His girlfriend, right?
His Jeremy's girlfriend.
I hope that's correct way to.
It is still. They're not married.
Oh, okay.
So Lisa Hogan, who they have a great chemistry. Like they work really well together. And so there was a second that like the first season was a huge hit. They made a second season. It was a huge hit. And so finally they follow a farming year. So now the third season was just released and last week or within the last couple of weeks.
Like they have to do that, like Netflix, the common joke, like, are you still alive? Do we need to call for help?
Yeah, I think
you haven't showered in 2 days.
I think I watched 4 episodes in a row one night.
Yeah, he like binged all the way through.
And so what to love about the show is I mean, you have to kind of like Jeremy Clarkson's shtick, which is he's a bumbling.
You could some people love him. Yeah. Some people hate him. Some people are like,
but you have to admit he's a great writer and a great storyteller, and so he brings that to the show.
I wouldn't say he's not, but I will say that he's a celebrity. I know of him. I wouldn't personally like seek out something that was created by him, and nor am I necessarily interested in British farming. It's not an area of interest to me, but it makes for compelling TV. Like the episode where they had piglets on, like, and I can't believe I'm sitting here saying yes that I watched something like that about piglets, and I was like super invested. Like, yeah. Oh my gosh, the baby piglets! Like to the point where I had to stop watching. And I won't give anything away about the episode, but like, yeah, it's very British. It's very, very British.
Well, and the thing I love about it is if you've ever watched Top Gear, the way they make the show, they make it in a cinematic way so that there's just so much beautiful scenery.
Yes.
Shot in a way there you just sit there and you're like injected into my veins. This is like I just want to be there right now. And when you watch it in 4K on a big TV, you're just it's like you're there. And you hear the birds and the nature and that's the interesting thing about Clarkson is he genuinely cares about the landscape of his farm. He cares about the wildlife. He doesn't just want to extract economic value from his farm. He wants to create a nice place to live and a nice place for everybody to enjoy. And thankfully this season, the first 2 seasons, there was a huge focus on his battle with the planning people in Oxfordshire on getting permission to do various things on his farm. They've kind of dialed that back this season and focused more on the farm stuff, the comedy stuff, the beautiful landscapes.
It's still there.
It's still in the background, and I don't want to give anything away, but it's not as prominent as like you're not going to the planning meetings like you were in the second season where you're just like, this is so boring.
I sympathize with those who had legitimate grievances because I am sure that there are legitimate grievances there. So I don't want to minimize that. At the same time, because something can be a couple things at once, really funny. It made for very funny TV. So
highly recommend the new season of Clarkson's Farm.
Yeah.
They're going to make a 4th season. They're filming it right now.
Nice.
So I think we'll have that show for a while until Jeremy Clarkson's probably sick of doing it.
So we've went through a lot today. So why don't we wrap it up? And but before we go, let's talk a little bit really quickly about what's in store for this season of the Anglotopia podcast, because you've got some big things on like, we're not going to name names. We're not name dropping, but we've got some big things.
So as part of the big Anglotopia reboot this year,
her glow up,
we're also rebooting the podcast. And so our plan is to release episodes more regularly. At least we're going to do seasons.
Yes.
So we'll do a season and then see what worked, what didn't work, and then do the next season. But that way you can expect an episode on a regular schedule. I'm not promising that schedule now.
Okay.
I don't know what it will be yet. But our goal is also to not just be us talking. We are going to bring guests into the podcast.
Not necessarily physically
not
here.
Physically, yeah.
But
so I've already had conversations with some very interesting guests who are
really good guests.
Very excited to be on the podcast. One is a best-selling author who cannot wait to come talk about her book, and I cannot wait to interview her about it. We've got some travel experts who are quite keen to come on and talk about their area of British travel. And we've got several others who are interested who are going to come on the podcast. So we're using a new platform to manage the podcast so we can, it was very daunting to bring the idea of bringing in guests because recording their audio, it can be complicated. It's a very technical and complicated process that I will not bore anybody with, but we're using new software that kind of automates everything. And so it makes it super easy to bring in guests. So that's gonna hopefully the next episode after this it'll be a guest podcast. So, well, and
listeners and viewers, if you have an idea for a guest, somebody that would be great on the Anglotopia podcast, let us know. We are recruiting guests for the rest of this season. I think we've got a couple spots left, but definitely into next season. So we just want to make sure that the podcast stays relevant and is bringing you enjoyment and the things that you want to talk about. I think additionally, if folks have ideas for
topics,
let us know.
So our goal, as always with everything we do, is to create a positive thing that is a place to enjoy British travel, history, and culture. And hopefully we will do that with the guests and with the podcast as we do this upcoming season.
So yay for season 1. Here we go. Mm-hmm. So closing thought, so sign up for the Londotopia newsletter.
Or the contest.
For the contest. Sign up for the Anglotopia newsletter.
For lovely British stuff in your inbox.
That's all free.
Every week.
Both newsletters are completely free. Then we have the books, right? Yeah. The new website. So much going on. So with that being said, I think we'll say goodbye. My tea is cold, so...
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye-bye.